This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1673, Thor Ragnarok movie review.
I can't talk about the whole damn song. Welcome to the show. I'm Brian Chrisman.
I'm Shane Kelly.
And I'm Adam Murdo.
Dude, yeah, how could you not play that song during the thing?
I love the way they use that song.
I mean, I don't watch trailers, but I could hear that during all the trailers that I was in theaters for and commercials for. So anyway, welcome to the show. This is our, as Merge so eloquently said, our Thor Ragnarok movie review. We should be joined momentarily by Mr. Chris Eberly. So yeah, obviously spoilers. We're trying to actually be somewhat timely with our movie reviews. It's tough for us, and we're all...
Yeah.
So you actually saw it, Shane, right?
I did.
Fantastic.
I took Ben yesterday.
Nice.
10 a.m. in the morning.
Woo! Really?
Oh, I love those shows.
Where, is that at the Fox?
Uh-huh.
Did you have like a drinky drink?
No.
No drinky drink?
No.
But they do have open bar there, right?
They do. I don't know if they serve that early in the morning,
right.
but they might.
I'm sorry.
It's too expensive.
I'm digressing here.
No. It's quite possible they don't. I wouldn't buy it anyway. It's too expensive.
Well, anyway, we're going to get into our thoughts on the movie in just a moment. But first, a word from our sponsor. This episode of Comic Geek Speak is brought to you by LearnToGradeComicBooks.com. Do you want to know what your comics are worth? Have you been at a convention holding your Grail book but not sure if it was actually in the condition the dealer priced it as? Well, the Learn to Grade Comic Books course will give you the skills you need to buy and sell comics with confidence. And this is a website designed by a longtime listener, a friend of ours, Kevin Volo, huge comic book fan, also photographer, videographer, and website developer, as well as an instructional technologist, which means he helps design online courses for universities and faculties. And now he's done one for how to grade comic books. Learn to Grade Comic Books takes you step by step through every comic grade level, explaining in detail why each book received the grade that it did. The video lessons examine 3 different titles at each grade level to give you a solid baseline for understanding the grading criteria. Lessons are broken down over 30 high-definition videos with high-resolution images to make sure you can clearly see the details being discussed. That's over 8 hours of course content, plus bonus support materials. And this is just a great course. I'm starting to go through it slowly, grade my comic books, well, certain ones, not all of them, but certain silver and gold age comics that I have. So I sort of have an idea what they're... might be worth it if I decide to liquidate my collection at some point.
Go.
Yes. But the course is only $49, but if you use the coupon code CGS2017, you get an extra 5% off.
That's the CGS advantage.
That's right. So check them out at LearnToGradeComicBooks.com. All right. Well, as I mentioned, spoilers for the movie review. We're just going to go through it and talk about it, and we'll get Chris on the line hopefully very shortly, give his thoughts, because he's the big Marvel guy. Again, I'm not the biggest. I mean, I've go to see all the Marvel movies, but I don't really get into too much depth on them. It's like, I like it, I'm more interested in what you guys think about it, and some of the comic book background of some of the characters, like Hela in this one, and I know a little bit about Korg, because then we saw Korg in Planet Hulk way back when. He was, I won't say he stole the show, but he was pretty good.
He was good.
Pretty good. So how do we start these out? It's been so long since I've done one of these here. Initial thoughts, I guess?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, initially, I didn't see any of the trailers for, like I mentioned. I was going to go see it anyway. I enjoyed it enough. I guess I was sort of, when I hear Ragnarok, what goes to my mind, and this is just me, is way back when the JSA was in limbo, and they were pretty much in like a continuous Ragnarok.
Right. It's just like a time loop.
A time loop. And they're always like fighting, and I thought it was like end of days kind of thing. And I didn't quite get that feel from the movie. It was enjoyable enough, but I'm thinking more crazy, more like apocalyptic kind of things happening. That's sort of kind of I was thinking about. I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the movie well enough. Some nice humor and everything. Good to see, the Hulk and Thor teaming up. So I was kind of analyzing, I guess. Had my expectations were kind of set high for what to expect there. But
well, I never read the story Thor Ragnarok.
Was there a story?
There was a story, right?
I'm sure at some point there must have been several.
Well, yeah, it was sort of like a meta arc. I don't know if it was exactly a story. It was a long-running subplot during Simonson's run that Ragnarok was approaching, and Surtur was always down in Muspelheim, forging his Twilight sword, preparing to, run roughshod over the Shining Realm.
Okay.
But yeah, this is definitely based on that.
And I know they pulled in some of Planet Hulk for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I enjoyed it as a Thor movie. I like the other ones; they're okay. Not my favorite at all in the whole grand scheme of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This one, to me, is better than the other two Thor movies that came. I like this one more. I didn't mind the humor they put into it. I thought they were very Kirby-esque designs of things that were in there, which I enjoyed thoroughly. I also thought that it was appropriate to be more space operatic, sort of, because of what they were doing and where they were pulling source material from and bringing in Planet Hulk stuff. If you wouldn't have had the Hulk in it and you wouldn't have had Sakaar in it and all that, I would have expected something very different and much more serious. Pulling all that into it, I thought it should be a little bit more fun in some ways. I did expect a little bit more out of the apocalypticness of Asgard and Ragnarok happening. I don't think that some of that stuff happened quite as direly as I thought it would, or grandiose. It was still good, and I still enjoyed all of it. I don't think there's a time throughout the movie that I wasn't smiling or laughing or enjoying the feast that was in front of my eyes on screen. Whereas I know some people really didn't like the humor, didn't like what was going on, and that's fine. Each to their own, man. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Some people like the other Thor movies better than this one. That's great. I just didn't. I thought this one was better of a Thor movie than the other two for me. The second Thor movie I liked well enough more than the first one. The first one's the weakest. But no, I really thought it was a great movie. I took my oldest boy, and he's sitting aside of me, and he's laughing like crazy at different parts.
He's about the target audience, I would say.
I would think so, too. And I don't know that much about all the characters. I knew when they named things, I knew some of them, but I didn't know what you will probably know, which is why I wanted to say now, because I'll look to you for more information, stuff that you probably have rattling around in your head about characters that I don't. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It was a good time.
Now, before we get to your thoughts, Adam, I wanted to play this clip from way back when that Kurt Schmidt has brought to our attention. I tried to play before, but it didn't quite work out, so here we go.
Previously on Comic Geek Speak,
episode 1437.
And of course, we know from movie history, you have to name the third film The Search for Odin, so...
Actually, I think the name of the third film is going to be Ragnarok.
So, that was... I think you mentioned later on that was probably an easy one to guess, knowing how it works, but still, you called it!
Yeah. Not going to pat myself on the back too hard for that one.
But Jamie wasn't wrong, because they were on a search for Odin, too.
True,
yep.
true.
They did get through
was
that
element of it.
Yeah.
So, his shout-out to the Star Trek film franchise is
yep. And I thought
appropriate.
that part was a little forced for Doctor Strange and all that, but...
All right, and now we have Chris on the line. Welcome to the show, Chris. Talk about Thor Ragnarok.
Brothers, happy to be here. All right, my initial thoughts.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. I can understand, based on what I saw and from what I read going into the film and after, how they wanted to go in a different direction. I think they very much did. Overall, I like the direction it took, except for a couple areas where I thought it was... I know they were trying to change the tone of the world of Thor through these movies, and in some areas, specifically with the Warriors 3, I thought that was needless. And that was too much, and that actually really stuck in my craw for reasons I'll get into when I elaborate as we talk about the movie further. I'm sure Adam probably shares my sentiments here. I would guess
you are correct, sir.
But overall, I really enjoyed it. we'll go into that as we go through the film, break it down. But Chris Hemsworth he's wonderful, and his chemistry, both with Tom Hiddleston, of course, and with Mark Ruffalo, really made the movie for me. And I really enjoyed what they did with the Hulk in this film, especially having him actually talk. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun. Do I think it's like one of the top tier Marvel films? No. And in fact, I don't even think it's close to one of the top tier Marvel films. But for what they were trying to do with it, I think in general they succeeded in that. And in that sense, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I completely forgot about the Warriors 3.
Too.
That really bummed me out.
Well, that part was kind of stupid.
I forgot about it too, but mainly because it disturbed me as much as it did. So yeah, I'm really pretty strongly of two minds about this movie because I feel even more strongly than you did, Brian.
Oh yeah,
that a movie with the subtitle Ragnarok should have been something different from what was put on the screen by the filmmakers.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad to see that I'm not completely loopy in the head.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. No, it's once again that little bugaboo of fanish preconceptions and expectations is working against me here. So yeah, this was undoubtedly not the film I wanted it to be, and it really, as Chris said, sticking in my craw a number of the things that they chose to do with it, including the premature and rather disrespectful termination of the Warriors 3. Fandrel, I don't think even got to say a word before he was killed.
He did not speak at all.
Not a word.
So, and then of course, Sif is completely disregarded as well,
right.
And the entire mortal cast left behind, and just biggest problem of all. Let me just say here, I am firmly in the camp of those who have gone on record as saying that this movie veered a little, and maybe a little more than a little, in the direction of forced humor. Well, it's not to say that this movie shouldn't have any funny bits. Certainly, it's become kind of a Marvel trademark. Even the other two Thor movies have had some of that. And Shane,
meow meow.
Yes, that's the one thing I remember the most about Thor: The Dark World. Yeah. Kat Denning saying mew mew. So yeah, I'm pleased we have a diversity of opinions here, Shane, because I feel exactly the opposite as you do about this Thor trilogy. To me, the first two were better. They were the tone setter, and the first one is actually better than Thor: The Dark World because in that case,
First one's terrible.
I didn't like the movie they came up with for Thor: The Dark World, but I liked the tone, and that at least remains somewhat consistent from the first one, which, as I said, is my favorite of the three. And then we get to this one, Thor: Ragnarok. I dislike the tone, but I liked the movie. I must admit, even though it's not the movie I wanted a Ragnarok movie, it didn't have that apocalypticism, that air of dignity and mythic grandeur and world-ending angst that one would expect a movie like this to have. It just clutched with both hands at every opportunity to make a joke that came along. But in the end, I was sort of entertained by it in spite of myself. I mean, there was quality humor here, some great comedic performances for all the actors involved, and this due in part to the director, Taika Waititi's decision to allow them to ad-lib a huge chunk of their lines, just to keep them loose and creative and involved. It was a visual feast. As you pointed out, Shane, the kudos to the effects designers and the set designers and the production designers for all of that. The music, that sort of techno 80s score from Mark Mothersbaugh of Devo. It fed into the kind of
did like that
retro 80s sci-fi fantasy epic vibe that they were going for. But I think it might have been better if they had just spun the whole Sakaar sequence off and made that a movie unto itself. Make that like Thor 2.5. Just have their fun with that, and then come back and sort of restore the tone from the first two for Ragnarok, and let that be the ending.
I won't disagree with that.
Of the cycle.
I will not disagree with that.
I agree with Chris that I'm pleased at the way they used the Hulk. I thought it was great that he finally got to speak for himself and develop something akin to a personality. Also cool that Mark Ruffalo got to speak as the Hulk instead of having Lou Ferrigno come in and record all the lines. On the whole, even though I would personally have done this movie somewhat differently, I have to admit I enjoyed thoroughly what they ended up doing. So
see, this is why I love having you on here, because I go into these movies pretty much with blinders on. I know very little going in. I knew who the cast were for some of them. Kate Blanchett to me was unrecognizable. I didn't know. I mean, I knew it was her. I thought it was her, but I kept. Is that really her? Is that really her? And it turns out it was her. But the director, mention his name again.
Taika Waititi.
He was the voice of Korg.
He was. Yes.
I had no idea.
Yep.
Huh.
Now, I would not have... How the movie is, I don't know that if I was doing it, I would have called it Ragnarok, because I don't think that was the main
The
focus
search for Odin,
of the
perhaps?
movie.
Why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. I mean,
It really wasn't.
They took this grand Elder Edic Twilight of the Gods and reduced it to something akin to a punchline.
Yeah, a few minutes in the beginning, a few minutes in the middle, a few minutes at the end, and that was it. So that part I will agree with.
Well, what I was when I went to see the film, and I'm piggybacking what Adam was saying here. As I said, I overall I enjoyed it quite. I mean, the Doctor Strange scene was priceless. I've been falling for 30 minutes, but like that was all.
But I thought that was kind of forced
Hiddleston
of him
steals
being
every
there.
scene he's in, but
He was kind of that whole Doctor Strange part. He was forced in there. Kind of didn't need to necessarily be there. He didn't do much of anything other than point them to where Odin was, which they probably could have figured out on their own.
yeah, but it was fun.
But it was fun.
It was a fun little
It
digress.
was absolutely fun.
But to piggyback on what Adam was saying, I was watching like, my God, this is like they tried to make like two different movies and then kind of meld them into one. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, all right, I loved how they brought in, because Thor has a strong cosmic legacy in that book, and I liked how they put Thor into space and had him having adventures in space and all of that. Like when we went to the Grandmaster's world, I'm sure we all caught the magnificent Kirby designs on his warriors. That was.
Yep.
Did you guys see his warriors?
They look
that
like
was
Celestials.
Jack Kirby
Yeah.
armor. It was amazing. Like you could tell, like wow, like they really were trying to apply that sensibility, and I really was just eating that up. But what struck me about the movie in general, when it comes to these two parts, is that as I was watching, I'm like, you know what? Like, where the hell is Lady Sif, who'd obviously be there defending Asgard if it's being invaded like this?
She's doing her NBC show called Blind Spot.
Yeah, and the deaths of the Warriors 3 was such. I mean, it was almost like it was an afterthought. I'm like, all right, I'm thinking, okay, I'm a comic guy, so the Warriors 3 mean a lot more to me than they would to the average moviegoer, but still, this seems really odd. So I did some reading after the film. And I read an interview with Kevin. Is it Feige? Is that how you say his last name?
Yeah,
I think so.
Kevin Feige. And he's basically saying, well, we wanted to show how powerful Hela was. We wanted to show her just coming in there and just wiping everybody out as quickly as possible. And I was like, and then they talked about how Chris Hemsworth was starting to become very frustrated with the way he felt Thor was being portrayed, and he was sort of getting frustrated and bored with the character, and he wanted to sort of flex his muscles when it came to humor and so forth. And I think he's a very gifted comedic actor. I mean, Ghostbusters alone.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, as far as I'm concerned, he was one of the best parts of that movie. So I saw, after I read this interview, I'm like, all right, I see what they were doing, and I get it, but it still seemed like they were so intent on taking Thor and the Thor movie franchise in this new direction that it's kind of like they threw everything out from the original. And I agree with Murd. I love the first Thor movie. I think that captures the essence of the comic book Thor perfectly. And it's kind of like what I deal with now in my job in teaching. Like when a new trend comes along, they just say, okay, everything you guys have been doing for your whole careers, none of that works now. Throw it all out, and we're going to do this new thing now because it's shiny.
The new math,
bright.
for instance.
Yeah, and which I can assure you that's asinine and never works every single time. So I'm all for changes and taking different directions, but maybe I'm just antediluvian. I never believe you have to just dispose of everything that something has been built on. I never buy into that, and I thought in some ways they were doing that very clumsily in this film, and that part of it, because overall I did really enjoy it, but that part of it really didn't work for me. I loved the scenes between Loki, Thor, and Odin in Norway. Because Anthony Hopkins could read a grocery list and it sounds, mythic and beautiful. Yeah. And I thought those were extremely well done.
How about the cameos in the production of the play?
Matt Damon?
Well, that's the one I missed.
Sam
was
Neill?
Matt Damon. Sam Neill. I missed that
Chris
Loki was Matt
Hemsworth's
Damon.
brother playing
Chris
Thor.
Hemsworth. Yep, I saw that. I completely missed that was Matt Damon playing Loki.
Oh yeah, I kept looking at it. Look, it said that's Matt Damon, isn't it? And I had to check afterwards. Yeah, it was Matt Damon.
Who did Sam Neill play?
Odin.
God, I totally missed that. All right. Yeah, so I think, I mean, seems like you guys agree with some of what I'm saying here, in that it just felt like two movies.
Oh, it did.
And that's hard to pull off in any capacity, but it just, and like you said, Ragnarok, all right, well, it's the Twilight of the Gods, and you kind of had that part of it with the Hela side of the movie. But like Murd said, that could have been a whole another film, basically. It's like they were trying to transition. Okay, we want to make Hemsworth happy. We want to amp this up in a different direction. And I also was reading how, and this makes sense, that because of convoluted contracts, the Hulk cannot have a standalone movie.
Yeah,
like they don't have the rights to give the Hulk like. Well, they did do the Incredible Hulk though. But I was reading something in this interview where, for whatever reason, now they can't do that for whatever reason. So they told Ruffalo, "We're going to have your arc through 3 different films," which I think is great because I think Mark Ruffalo, A, is a great actor, and B, because of the motion capture technology, like he's performing the Hulk, like that's his face, that's his voice, and that was one of my favorite parts of the whole film. And their dynamic, like these are Tony's clothes, and all that. And, Stark, Point Break, and all that. Like again. All the callbacks to the other films, like that's where they take the best elements of what makes the Marvel Universe great from the get-go, and they put it in the movies, and I really enjoy that. I was just thrown by, like, okay, they're dead, and now we're moving over here, and it was a little abrupt, and I get it. Hela's the goddess of death, and of course she's going to come in there and wipe people out, but at least Hogan got a little bit of a battle before he was killed. Maybe they were making up for the fact that he had basically one quick scene in Dark World. But this movie's making monster money. And who loved the Immigrant Song, by the way?
Oh,
that was awesome.
Chris, I have no idea what you're talking about. You weren't here for the opening. You weren't here for the opening credits. So.
Sorry, John, I'm monopolizing. Go ahead.
I also got a bit when they're on Sakaar and they're doing the whole space part of it. Some of it I also got a Flash Gordon vibe, an '80s Flash Gordon movie.
I did too. Yep,
sky slitting,
which I loved. And I loved all the techno music, the '80s kind of Tron-like, somewhat war gamesy sounding bleeps and gerbils that were in turbos, whatever you want.
Heavy.
It was very Sith heavy, and it just worked for me there. But I do totally agree, though, that I do think the Ragnarok side of the movie suffered. And like you, Adam, I enjoyed it very much. In spite of that, not knowing most of what storyline that is, I just knew it's out there. I did expect more from that part of it. So in that way, I do think it was not given its fair due in the movie. I think they focused way too much on the space part, the Sakaar and the Hulk stuff. That was absolutely fantastic, but that was the movie. I don't necessarily think it should have been called Ragnarok, given all of that was going on. I do think the Warriors 3 were dispatched a little bit too quickly and too easily, kind of needlessly. I think they should have been off doing something else and trapped. Even if they were injured and trapped somewhere else so that they could be in whatever comes next. Hopefully they'll return somehow. I mean, characters come back all
I'm kind
the
of
time.
hoping that eventually we'll get to see a hint of the Norse afterlife.
Yeah.
Like the Hall of Valhalla and all the Einherjar, the immortal warriors that battle and carouse endlessly.
Yeah.
And we've also got in the Infinities, so...
Yeah. Maybe it'll be...
Who knows? But, yeah, I mean... I'm glad, Heimdall was there, which was great, leaving the resistance, so to speak. And I just think they want to shock people, right? So they kill off these supporting characters that everybody recognizes. I understand that. I don't know. It just, again, I'm being a fanboy here. It just, because I'm sure the average moviegoer didn't give a damn, but it just stuck in my craw. Yeah. Because it was so obvious, like, what they were going for with that.
This is an element of the first 2 movies we don't want to have to deal with, so they become our scapegoat. We just kill them off to symbolically eliminate anything from the first 2 movies we didn't like.
Yeah. So, again, I think the rapport with Loki and Thor is tremendous. I love their dynamic.
And I love that Loki even being the trickster he is, even kind of betraying Thor and Thor calling it out at the end, even I'm sure he grabbed the Tesseract and kept that for himself.
Of course.
I still appreciate that when it comes to his father, his mother, and his adopted homeland, he still goes to battle for it for some sense of love for them, for the land, for whatever it is. Even though he would like to rule it, even though he would turn on anybody to do it, he's still there doing something. He's still there when his upset when his mother was killed in the last one, and upset that Odin's now gone. There is still something there with Loki.
Right. There is a certain buried nobility to him.
But
it's buried fairly deep.
Very, very deep. Yeah.
Well, as Thor says to me, he says, "Look, you're the god of mischief." Like he's like accepting of his brother's nature. And again, that scene in Norway, the three of them, and Odin says, your mother would have been proud of how you worked the spell on me, and you can see how that affected Loki.
Yeah.
Again, it's Anthony Hopkins, so it's automatic grandeur, basically.
And it was a good fitting way for him to part the franchise too. Even if he comes back as something else, but even if he doesn't, it's not a terrible way to go.
Well, his wife Freya at least managed to. She got to die in battle, and she was sent off in a Viking funeral, all the pomp and circumstance, the flaming longboat, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And Odin just kind of sits there like an old man and disintegrates into the breeze. Yeah,
but there was something
I didn't
mythical about that. I mean, don't get me wrong, a battle would have been much better, but I think there's something.
It's all that they could get out of Anthony Hopkins. I mean, he didn't even want to come back and be Odin in a third movie. He changed his mind once he read the script and saw how little he'd actually have to do.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have to get into full Odin armor to do it. Even as it is, I actually wasn't as impressed with his performance as you guys were. I thought he kind of mumbled through it.
What do we didn't mention these people. What about the Valkyrie and the Grandmaster? We didn't mention them yet.
I expected the Grandmaster to be a little bit more Jeff Goldblum than Grandmaster, and that's what we got, and that's fine.
Jeff Goldblum to the power of Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
A little over the top.
And that's what I expected.
And the most worthless teaser scene you ever sat through for the end credits, by the way.
It's a tie.
Oh, yes.
That was ridiculous. Are you kidding me? I like Jeff Goldblum too, but we got to sit through all the credits for that?
Yeah.
Come on.
I thought that was
absurd.
That was not where I thought those credit scenes were going, given what I saw of the Infinity War trailer.
They should have switched them. You know what?
Yeah, they really should have. Yeah.
Yes, had the giant spaceship descending.
But even so, that did not end the way I thought it would too. There's one little part that I expected to see for what I saw in that trailer that was out in San Diego.
I didn't realize the trailer was out.
Oh, it's not. It's not. I'm not going to say that.
Pants. We're not going to say anything. Pants.
It was out. It was not released to the public, but of course, a couple bootleg copies got thrown around a couple websites. So there's just something about it that I was expecting.
All right, we have to assume that was Thanos' ship.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah,
that's what I would assume. Too.
Loki's got the Tesseract in his pocket.
Yeah, he's got the Tesseract. Yeah, that's what I thought. So Goldblum was Goldblum. I've always enjoyed Jeff Goldblum as an actor. He has that certain approach, that certain snark, and it was perfect in that role.
Yeah.
What do we think of Valkyrie, though? I really enjoyed her performance.
Yeah, I did too. I thought she was much better than I thought she would be. I thought she would look more almost Amazonian, almost Wonder Woman like taller, bigger, but it was well played. I enjoyed her reasoning for doing what she was doing. Not knowing most of the Thor characters like that, I didn't realize at first that's who that was. I should have. But it was neat how they brought her in and progressed her story through, and Thor kind of got a thing going with her now.
And the flashback scenes I loved with her past.
Yeah.
Now, Murd, did you think that was the Valkyrie we know who died in front of her? That was that little nod to her?
Thank you, Chris. I was going to bring that up. Yes, yeah. I too very much enjoyed that one little flashback scene. Yeah. Going back to how Valkyrie fell from grace, as it were, when she and the other Valkyrior rode out on their flying steeds to battle Hela in ages past. And yes, I do think that fair-haired, Aryan-looking maiden who sacrificed her life to save the Valkyrie in the movie, I think that probably was Brunhilde. Okay. Because the character we got here played by Tessa Thompson, I'm convinced was not Brunhilde at all, but a completely different Valkyrie. A member of her order, and possibly Brunhilde's lover, because Tessa Thompson has come on record as saying that as far as she's concerned, her Valkyrie is bisexual.
Okay.
So that's a good transition. So the Valkyrie of the comics gives her life to rescue this other Valkyrie, and she then carries forward as the representative member of their order in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And I love the Valkyrie armor she wore at the end of the movie. I thought that was really well done too.
Spot on. I just loved the sort of visual poetry of that scene, just like the flapping of the wings of flying steeds.
Yep.
Beautifully done.
Practically hear the strains of Wagner in the background. And nothing against Led Zeppelin, but I'd rather have heard more of that than Immigrant Song.
The Ride of the Valkyries.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So I really expected more of, visually and auditorily, I wanted to see more of that scene and less of, Neon Dayglow, Big Trouble in Little Sakar 80s movie. And Shane, Big Trouble in Little China was a major influence.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that too.
Yeah. Valkyrie, for me, though, she was just kind of a tiresome character, honestly. It's just kind of a trope, just a world-weary warrior who has suffered a major loss somewhere back in her past and has given up on life and duty and honor and has just crawled off to some godforsaken hellhole corner of the galaxy to drink herself into a stupor and forget. She runs herself into this shell of cynicism, and then a more idealistic person comes along and tries to drag her back into fighting the good fight, and she says, "Ha ha ha, you cannot touch me with your emotional appeals. I'm too cynical. Oh, wait, you touched me. Okay, guess we'll go fight the bad guy now."
Wow.
That's how I expected
This
that.
is what I love about these.
Yeah.
I expect.
Well, Murphy, we shouldn't expect innovative storytelling here.
No.
I mean, it's not going to break new ground in that sense, I don't think.
Truthfully, I think the movie could have done without her. Another character that we could have done without, but that I actually liked, and that I'm glad we didn't have to do without, is Scourge. I thought Scourge...
Oh, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
Looked spot on.
Yeah, it took me a
Sure did.
to figure out, is that Carl Urban? And I did figure out...
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
because,
you didn't?
again, I don't go into these casting and know who's in the movie, but I was like...
Well, you know what? He looked somewhat similar to that in, one of Vin Diesel's Pitch Black movies. So I kind of picked him out and thought, okay, well, that's Carl Urban, Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, Pitch Black, whatever, or whichever one of those movies it was. I enjoyed his performance pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
But like Murd said, I mean, he stepped right out of the comic. I mean, they just nailed the look of that character. I turned to Jen, I said, it's the Executioner. Because it was just he was so perfectly rendered. That was a visual delight.
Yeah. I looked up what he looked like after I got home and saw that. And even a couple scenes where he had the machine guns in the comic, I'm like, oh my God, that came right out of Simonson's run. Did something perfect with him.
Sure did.
Diz and Troy. Two Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I got that reference too.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the one thing that I wish they had thrown in there somehow too is that he's not really the son of a stonemason. He was kind of like Loki. He was a half-breed outcast. His father was a storm giant of Jotunheim, which is why he's so well in the comics. He's a lot taller than Carl Urban is in the movie. So he was kind of this grim, sullen aspect about him that he'd been an outsider all his life and just kind of wanted to kill things as revenge against life. But then he came around in the end, of course, and died a noble death. And this version of Scourge didn't quite have that, but he did at least manage to die the noble death.
Yeah.
So it was a cool little tangential arc going on there. And one kind of wonders if they erected a statue or something to him in the Ark ship that they all escaped on afterwards.
What do we think of Thor losing Mjolnir and his eye and
his hair?
That whole...
Well,
his hair.
I miss the hair the most.
The eye I was kind of surprised of. I thought that was an odd way to go because unless something changes, now forevermore he'll have a patch over his eye like his father. And I guess that's okay, but...
It's a Snake Plissken thing. Again, it's an 80s sci-fi fantasy action movie.
Wow.
That was just weird. I didn't... At first I was like, Mjolnir's gone, and I thought, all right, well, Thor can't really do much without that. But I'll go along with their explanation.
He's not the god of hammers.
Okay, yeah, right. But so now again, this is me just being stupid, so that's what I do here. So he's the god of thunder.
Yes.
Thunder.
Now I know from thunder there's lightning, but lightning coming out of him? How about like boom, that kind of thing? Thunder instead. I don't know.
No, like sonic powers?
Yeah, something like that. Come on.
Doesn't look as good on screen.
I understand
And you can't
that,
have
but
thunder without lightning.
I'd
so-
rather he do that than Wonder Woman do that. Let's put it that way.
But I'll go along with their explanation as to why he can do that. I would prefer if they wouldn't have destroyed the hammer, but
Me too.
that's
well, yeah, I mean, they got rid of so many things. The hammer's gone,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, somebody
Of course.
could always gather up the pieces. That could play into a future movie, too.
oh sure.
Oh, sure, why not? But, you know, got rid of the Warriors 3. It's like, oh, many things. But, yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
I
would think I'll do anything new.
it takes
What
away
Ragnarok is all about.
Yeah.
it takes away a little bit from the importance of the hammer that nobody else can wield it because
Yeah.
well, it really wasn't the source of the power or the focal point of anything. It was just the object that allowed Thor to do all that, but he can do all that stuff now without it.
Yeah,
So
which is kind of different.
Damn it!
from-
I wanted to see Steve Rogers pick it up.
well, yeah, especially since he nudged it in
Oh,
Age
yeah.
of Ultron. So I mean, like, hey, come on.
Yeah, he made Thor sweat a little in that scene.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that took a little bit of the importance of the hammer away, but we'll see what happens.
Somebody answer a question for me. How have we
Please.
gotten through 3 Thor movies without once seeing the Enchantress?
Yeah, I was wondering
Yeah.
if she'd show up because Scourge was there, but
Yeah.
Well, because you had Hela as the big female lead in the movie here, I guess.
Yeah, but still, she should have shown up somewhere, or at least be mentioned. Something.
She's probably on the Ark somewhere.
Yeah.
Close quarters like that. That's where she does her best work, you know.
Now, of course, when they left on the Ark, the first thing I thought of was that they were going to go to Straczynski's place for Asgard. and
Oklahoma.
Midgard.
Oklahoma, yeah.
Roxton.
Okay. Roxton.
But now I'm wondering if Thanos doesn't just capture them all and keep them somewhere, given what I think will happen to lead me into what I'm thinking should happen, which would be kind of disappointing. I think he should have done that. I think they should have done that some other way with that last scene. I don't know. I have problems with that scene.
well, that remains to be seen. No pun intended. I mean, I'm curious about where they're going to go with the Thor character past this because, you know, we don't know if they're going to make more Thor solo films. Obviously, it's going to appear in the next 2 Avengers movies.
Yeah.
But depending on what happens there, because I'm really interested to see where they would go with the Asgardians and the Ark. I can never get enough of Loki and his misadventures.
Well, heck, he could have his
So-
own solo movie, and it would be
Yeah.
fantastic.
So
millions.
you know,
yeah.
we just kind of have to wait and see what happens in the Avengers films to see how they set up these characters going forward.
Now, if they would go to another Thor movie, I really would like to see one. So what I did, the first one's fine. That's actually the only Marvel Cinematic Universe movie I never went to the theater to see.
Which one?
The first Thor movie.
Oh.
I just thought, nah, that doesn't look good. And it was okay, but it didn't knock me over. It served its purpose, but I thought they tried to force the love story a little bit too much. There were some good parts to it. I won't discount it. I do watch it every now and then, but
I can
it's-
go along with that,
it's
actually.
just doesn't do it for me. The second one was so much more mythic and Asgardian in some of its elements that I actually enjoyed that more for telling a lot about Asgard and Thor and Odin and Freya, his mother? Freya. I enjoyed all of that much more in the second Thor movie than anything they did in the first one. And I did want to see more of that stuff in the third one. But since we didn't get that, I still enjoyed the third movie. I want a fourth Thor movie that's very Asgardian, very mythic, very grandiose in that way.
And
Especially,
remember, Asgard is not a place; it's a people.
It's anyway.
We were
Especially
told that like
now
5
that
times, so I think
that Thor has gotten away from being so Dopic in Midgard, so Dopic on Earth, and
you're going to have to define that for our non-Pennsylvania Dutch listeners.
kind of awkward and the butt of everyone's joke. Like
Okay, that's what
like,
Dopic means, folks.
like making a joke about the Pop-Tarts in the first one, or throwing a glass down, or I don't know. There's just something about him that now that he's been around Earthlings and the Avengers, and he's grown a little bit, and he's now ruler of Asgard. I think it's time for him to be more grand, yet still retain all that intelligence. That
I think they established that at the end of the movie, Shane.
Yeah,
just him sitting on that throne, and I think that's definitely there.
But now I want to see it. I want to see it in another Thor movie.
Well, what I've always loved about Thor and his world is that grandeur. I remember I think it was the end of one of the Siege miniseries some years back, where at the end, I think it was who drew Thor with Straczynski? Oh, damn it!
Coy Pell.
Okay,
yeah.
not Coy Pell. Yes, and at the end of that story, they have Thor and his comrades descending from Asgard to talk to the heroes, and it's just awe-inspiring, the art, and you see the grandeur of those characters. And I think you can have that and still balance those fun Earth moments, like when he does the selfie with the two girls in the street, and they ask about Jane, which is amusing and so forth. But yeah, I think at the end of that movie, when he sits in that throne, and I guess they give him the eye patch to have that resonance of Odin, so to speak. I think you can see that, and again, I think it all comes down to how is he going to be handled in these Avengers films? Because, and again, I've said this before, but I don't know how far Disney's going to let Marvel go here. But if they do full-on Thanos, it's not going to matter who's fighting him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be carnage beyond anything people can imagine. If they take the restraint off, and I don't know if they will or not. When it comes to that.
Well,
so,
I actually kind of thought that they should be able to do that a little bit because of what they sort of foreshadowed Tony seeing when the Scarlet Witch whammied him back in Age of Ultron. That everybody really should be wiped out except maybe Tony until the last second because he saw all that destruction. Even though that was induced by the Scarlet Witch, there should be something similar to that with some of them or one or two of them seeing that kind of destruction. And then they buy it or the movie, however they work it. But they really should let Thanos off the leash, so to speak, and do what he's supposed to do.
We're all hoping for that.
Yeah.
Well, we won't have to wait too long. First we have Black Panther coming up in February.
God, does that look good.
Then we have in May the Avengers Infinity War.
Yep.
Followed 2 months later in July by Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, wow.
So that's the next wave. It's still, I guess, phase 3 of the Marvel movies. And then, of course, it looks like in May of actually we have March of 2019 is Captain Marvel. Mm-hmm. And then in May of 2019 is the second part of Infinity War, whatever it's going to be called officially. But, yeah. Well,
now, have they promoted anything past that or no?
I think there was a presentation, I think, at D23 that might have thrown something up beyond that, or at least placeholders for things. I can't quite remember, though.
Well, Spider-Man 2, possibly Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Another Doctor Strange, perhaps?
Possibly, but who knows at this point. That's above our pay grades. So we about ready to wrap it up, or we still have more to talk about, like give our frickin' swears and that kind of thing?
Well, the only thing I want to say is, and I won't talk about it because I know you don't like trailers, but our trailers were one of the Star Wars, Justice League, which surprised me that it was in front of a Marvel movie, and Black Panther. So I was in hog heaven seeing all three of those on the big screen.
Yeah, again, without spoiling anything for Pants, I think the Panther film is going to be something special. I don't just saying that because I love the Black Panther. Just looking at that trailer, I think they really have it. That's just my gut feeling based on that trailer.
When they
as much as you can tell from a trailer. So
Ben nudged me and goes, "Are we going to go see that?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "All right,
what do you think?"
Like he got into it, man.
Of course.
Yeah.
How can you not?
We haven't said much about Hela.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Well, like I said, I thought it was Kate Blanchett, but I wasn't 100% sure. It was totally...
It's the voice that gives her away.
It's the voice, and it's a little bit of what I remember her being in Lord of the Rings when she sort of tempted to take the ring and that...
Oh, right.
I am the food... That sort of comes into my mind, so I didn't...
But cranked up to 11, of
Yeah.
She, too, was allowed to take her performance pretty far over the top.
Yeah.
I mean, Kate Blanchett is a tremendous actress. I thought it was a very rote, one-dimensional role. Like, it was cool when they showed the secret history and how Odin used her to help conquer.
Yeah.
I always enjoy when they bring out the sordid underbelly of any society and the politics that go with it and so forth. But, I wasn't that interested in that part of the movie, honestly, because she was just
it was underdeveloped.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it, Mert. It was definitely underdeveloped.
I like
they were doing 2 movies in one.
I like what you said when she revealed the secret history that Odin had gone to with her. I liked I liked the flashback of her like fighting the Valkyrie. That was great.
That was awesome. That's awesome.
And I did like when she's going through the armory, knocking things over, going fake.
The giant Infinity Gauntlet,
All right.
example.
That was an easy way to explain away why the gauntlet was in there versus where we actually know it is. So that's fine. But yeah, I didn't think she was as developed as what she should have been.
Yeah. Visually, she was.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
The only thing I didn't like about
headdress is pure Kirby.
The only thing I didn't like about that is how she got the headdress on. I didn't buy the whole I'm going to wipe my hair and here's my helmet. That magic. That drove me
Right.
nuts.
Those planet, it's magic.
I guess.
Where the cosmic meets the cosmetological.
All right. Well, give it our freaking swears. I think I give it probably a solid 3.
I'm going to give it a 4.
I may not have liked what they did, but I must acknowledge that they did it very well, and I enjoy the movie almost in spite of myself. I give it a 4 also.
I give it a 3.5.
All right. Well, that was our wrap-up for Thor Ragnarok. Again, couldn't touch on everything. We're going to do a quick episode while the iron is hot to try to get these quick movie reviews out here. So, once again, this episode was brought to you by LearnToGradeComicBooks.com. So go to their website to check out their courses, and you can save 5% off when you use the coupon code CGS2017.
Visit us at comicgeekspeak.com to send an email. The address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. Almost ran out of breath. To leave a voicemail, the number is 267-702-6642. Stop by thecomicforums.vanillaforums.com and let us know what you think of the Thor Ragnarok movie. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. Thank you to everyone who contributes to the episode, sends in stuff, comments. We enjoy it and appreciate it. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.